And good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Law&Crime Network. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here by Law&Crime trial analyst Jonna Spilbor, and thanks for joining us here on the program where we cover the most interesting live trials and legal stories in the news today. Let's get started. Okay, so as we wait for this testimony to clear up a little bit, Jonna, I want to talk about what happened last week. They had a whole testimony on Friday because the idea was, here's Nouman Raja, he's got his own version of events about what happened, and he said he thought that there was a laser sight on Corey Jones' gun. Yeah. What we learned on Friday was there was no laser shot, no laser sight. Right. And we also was trying to see, well, maybe the gun was silver, maybe it could reflect, light could reflect off, maybe there was something from lights on the nearby street that could be what he saw. Clearly, there's a discrepancy between what he saw and what he interpreted and what the evidence shows. What's the defense going to do here?
I know this is really important because what the prosecution has been doing, and I think pretty successfully all along, is poking holes in the defendant's story, right? Which is what they need to do if they want to get a guilty verdict in either of any of the charges here. The defense may bring on their own expert, Jesse, to counter the state's expert to say, wait a minute, no, this clearly could have looked like a red laser sight at this angle at that time of night under the lights with the traffic light beaming off the barrel of the gun. Because that's what often happens when you have expert testimony on one side, they often have to bring an expert to counter it on the other side. We call that affectionately the battle of the experts.
Yeah, no, I get that. And speaking about experts, do you think that the defense will bring in experts to talk about memory in the sense that, look, Nouman Raja wasn't lying. He wasn't trying to cover anything up. This was a traumatic event for him, and his memory was affected. So let's look at an expert who can talk about traumatic events like this. Have you ever seen that happen before?
That's interesting, and yes, I have seen that before, and that might go a long way in trying to dispel what the prosecution's trying to prove is that he's just flat out lying, right? So the defense needs to do something to show that, no, he's not. This is an innocent mistake. And again, it also goes to the defendant's state of mind, and the state of mind is going to be important for the jury to determine if he's going to be guilty of anything, and if so, which of the charges.
Yeah, because, I mean, the thing that really bothers me, or the thing that I think bothers a lot of people, is when did he see Corey Jones' gun? Did he pull his out and fire first? I mean, we don't have audio, we don't have video of it, we just have audio. Let's go back live. Again, this is an FBI firearms expert. Okay, back here with Jonna Spilbor. Jonna, you tell me, what are we gaining from this? I mean, we know that Raja shot Jones. We know that Jones' weapon was not fired. Right. What are we gaining from this?
Well, this is a little bit dry, right? But it's also rather necessary because I think what the prosecution wants to prove is that there's no chance that somebody's going to come back and say, well, wait a minute, no, he didn't actually fire 3 times or 4 times. He only fired once because these casings don't match up, or this one had been laying there for years and years and years. So he's really just going through the pro forma. This is the type of gun that was shot. This is how we know these casings belong to those bullets.
Raja's charged with manslaughter and attempted first-degree murder. The fact that there was a volley of shots, 2 or 3, a pause, and another volley of shots from Raja, what does that tell you?
Jesse, the thing that really confounds me about this case is the way it was charged. And we talked a little bit about this last week. We have an attempted murder charge, but we don't have a murder charge. Yet we have a dead victim here. So it's very strange. And I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that there was a break. Like at one point, did the prosecution think, all right, well, this first round, we can charge him with attempted murder, but we'll only charge him with the manslaughter for the second round. I'm not quite sure what was going on in the prosecution's head there, but it's interesting to me.
Have you ever seen someone charged with manslaughter and attempted first-degree murder?
Yes, I have seen that, which is kind of a safeguard for the prosecution because it gives the jury an option if they don't come back with a murder conviction to come back with something less. But I have not seen an attempt when you have a dead victim. Usually you don't charge the attempt unless the victim is still alive, which is why this is very curious to me.
Well, again, if they find him guilty of attempted first-degree murder, he could get life in prison.
There's a big difference. If he's guilty of the attempted murder, he could go to prison for life. On the manslaughter charge, only up to 15 years. That's a huge difference. He's not he's not an old guy.
Yeah, and I think the reason this has captured the nation's attention is not just because of some of these legal issues, but I think it's the first time in 26 years in Florida that an officer is facing charges for an on-duty killing. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a lot more to talk about, and we'll be live in that courtroom. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. So we're about to jump live into the Nouman Raja trial. There's a little bit of quiet. Nothing's happening right now, so it gives Jonna Spilbor and I some opportunity to speak more about this case. Jonna, do you think that we are going to see the defendant take the stand? We couldn't get a clear answer on it last week. Yeah. I think he was told about his rights, but doesn't he have to take the stand?
I think he does, Jesse. I mean, this case is really going to be about two things. What was going on in his head, and the only true way to get inside his head is to have him testify about what was going on inside his head. But the other thing for him, the other challenge for this defendant is the state is clearly trying to make him look like a liar. And that's very important. He's got to get some sort of sympathy or empathy from this jury. They have to believe that this was just something that happened excitedly in the heat of the moment, because at least then, they're not going to come back with an attempted murder verdict. They're not going to come back with a guilty verdict there. They still might get him on the manslaughter. And this might very clearly be a manslaughter because it was reckless what he did, getting out, not clearly identifying himself, unless he gets on the stand and he explains why it wasn't heard on the recording that he did identify himself.
He's got some explaining to do,
so
we're going to have to see. Let's jump back into the court right now. Again, an FBI firearms expert is on the stand. All right, so as we get into some of the details of the weapons, let's get more into the general idea here. And I want to just go back to what we were talking about. The idea of that the defendant took out his weapon, but we don't know when he took out his weapon, in the sense he claims that he saw Corey Jones take out a gun, and that's when everything went haywire.
Right.
But when you listen to that audio recording from the roadside assistance call, you can hear Corey Jones say, "Hold on." Now, why would he say hold on if he took out the weapon? You know, because first, the reason he said hold on is because the defendant said, "Get your effing hands up, get your effing hands up." So why would he say hold on if he was had his own weapon out? That's the thing that strikes me as odd.
Because I don't think he'd be saying, "Hold on, let me get my weapon out so I can defend myself." He wasn't saying that. It's almost as if, and we're getting into his head, and he's not here to explain himself either, that maybe he saw the officer pull a gun and was like, whoa, 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 what's going on here?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you listen to the call, according to Raja's theory, he pulled out his weapon and fired. He got into that position because he saw Corey Jones with a weapon.
Right.
If we take that as true, that means Corey Jones would have had his weapon out and said, hold on, hold on.
Right.
So, as almost if, you know, a standoff.
Well, exactly, and that's one theory. I think it hurts the defendant here even more that the gun was found a certain number of feet away from the vehicle, and then Corey Jones' body was found a certain number of feet away from that. I don't think that helps the defendant at all.
That he was running away?
That he was running away. That he was running away, and it's likely that, you know, he dropped the gun at some point. Did he get shot at that point, and the defendant here kept on shooting, and then until the victim finally fell? I mean, these are questions that the jury's going to have to answer one way or another.
We believe the gun was found approximately 24 yards from the rear of Jones' vehicle, and that Jones's body was found 64 yards from the rear of the vehicle. So again, that understanding of what happened, but I guess that we just have to, it's impossible that so much of it is caught on audio but not video. That roadside assistance call, though, could be the most important piece of evidence we have.
Oh, absolutely. Without that, you really don't have a lot to counter what this defendant intends to say, if he intends to take the stand, or what his story is thus far. And, you know, Jesse, look, how stupid is it? He's in an unmarked van. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm alone on the side of the road in the middle of the night in an unmarked van of all cars, right? It wasn't a Corvette, pulls up, and a guy comes out and starts asking me questions, I am going to be in fear also, just like I'm sure this victim was. And
the argument put forward by the prosecution is, how on earth would the victim have known this man was an officer? Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have a lot more discussion. We'll be right back. Okay, so a little silence in the courtroom right now. I'm back here with Jonna Spilbor as we listen to this. What is the main thing that you're learning from this? I mean, it's important to understand the specifics of the shooting and how it went down, but what's sticking out to you?
Yeah, you know, to be honest with you, Jesse, I do find this testimony a little bit dry, but I think what's sticking out the most is that, you know, clearly there's going to be no question whatsoever how many bullets were ejected from the defendant's gun here, which way they were going. You know, he wasn't shooting in the air. I think we can establish that. And that's really the most important import from this witness.
Now, here's the thing, is the strongest piece of evidence for the defense is that Corey Jones did have a weapon on him. I mean, and it was loaded. Now, the chamber was empty and the safety was in safe mode, but he wouldn't have known that, the defendant.
No, he wouldn't have known that. And it's going to be critical if the jury believes that this defendant actually saw a weapon in the victim's hand. I think that's crucial. What he said and what kind of commands he gave the victim and what the victim did next is going to be equally crucial because like we said, victim was far away from this vehicle. So was he running away while he was being shot at? That's important to know. Yeah,
and again, we believe that Corey Jones did have a license for that firearm. It's not like it was illegally obtained or anything like that. Again, there's a sidebar happening in the trial right now, and we're just getting some perspective before we go back live. This is a Florida stand your ground law. Raja had a stand your ground hearing before the trial started, which as a matter of law, if the judge said, hey, this is clearly stand your ground, the charges would have been dropped and he would have gone back. But the judge denied that. Now we're at a trial. How does that impact what the jury's decision is? They won't know about that hearing. Right?
They won't know about the hearing. Those hearings are huge in the state of Florida because it basically takes the wind out of the prosecution sails. If a defendant wins that, then he's immune from prosecution and you never end up having a trial. So the fact that he lost that, you know, if you're reading the tea leaves, I think it doesn't bode well, obviously, for the defendant here, which is another reason why I think we're definitely going to see him on the stand.
Well, what does stand your ground really mean? I mean, it's not in every state.
No, it's not in every state. And basically, a stand your ground law is that when you're confronted with what you believe to be a life-threatening incident from somebody else, you don't have a duty to retreat. You can stand there, literally stand your ground and shoot to kill.
Yeah,
or defend yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's go back live into the courtroom. The witness is back on. Okay, Jonna, so you tell me, I think what they're really trying to get at is if based upon the trajectory of the bullets, they can get a sense of where Raja was when he fired his weapon and maybe also where Jones was, because the more idea that he was the aggressor chasing him with a weapon, firing at him, the worse it looks for Raja's case. Yeah,
that's becoming clearer and clearer. I think they're trying to figure out whether the defendant here was giving chase or whether he was staying in one spot, how fast or how far the actual victim was running himself. I mean, these are all things that are important because the jury's going to have to decide when the threat was eliminated. Let's suppose the defendant's going to take the stand and say he felt threatened because he saw a gun, getting around the fact that it didn't have a laser sight on it, etc. When was that threat eliminated, and did this defendant keep on shooting after that? That's a critical point, in my opinion.
We've talked so much about the things that hurt the defense's case. What's the strongest point for the defense's case? Is it the fact that Corey Jones had the weapon?
The fact that he had a gun.
That's the biggest part.
Yeah, because, you know, you can understand from a police officer's perspective if he did, in fact, if the victim were holding a gun and the police officer said, put that down, I'm a police officer, and Corey Jones did not listen, now you may get into the realm of a justified shooting from the police perspective.
Well, on that roadside assistance call, the first thing you hear Corey Jones say when Nouman Raja approaches is, huh? Now, that is, we believe, Raja had said, I identified myself as an officer. That's what he claims. It's not captured by the audio. We don't know.
Right.
But isn't that reasonable doubt?
And not only is it not captured, well, hang on a second, because again, I put myself in the victim's shoes here. And plainclothes, van, middle of the night, we don't know if this officer flashed a badge. Like, you could come up to me in the middle of the night and say, hey, I'm Jesse Weber, police officer. No, you're not. Like, anybody can say that. So was it reasonable for the victim to be fearful here? I keep going back to that point because I know I would be.
And the prosecution said, how would he know that this guy, Raja, wasn't trying to rob him? You know, he had a weapon, plain clothes, unmarked van. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will be live in the courtroom. Stay tuned. Okay, Jonna, let me just tell you what he just testified to. Can you tell the jury the exact path the bullet struck the tree? I can't. It's a limitation of science. Can't tell the jury based off of the tree exactly where the shooter was standing when the bullet was fired? I can't. Can you tell where Corey Jones was at any point? I cannot. What's happening here? What are we gaining from this?
Is this going to help either side or both, right, is the question. And I think what we're probably going to see down the road is the defendant is probably going to try to convince the jury that he was in a particular spot at the time he saw the gun, and then he had no choice but to fire. And this testimony may debunk that. You know, oftentimes when people are testifying, we scratch our head and say, where is this going to tie in? It could tie in eventually later on in this trial.
I'm a big picture guy. You know,
yes,
I like to know
the
big picture of everything. But here, let me just ask you this real quick. You had mentioned something very interesting to me. This witness, prosecution slowly concluding their case, they shouldn't end with him, right?
Yeah, the reason I said that is because this isn't the most compelling testimony. You know, some of the jurors could be nodding off right now. No offense to the jury, but they could, because it's just not that compelling. And it's not yet been tied into where the prosecution, the exact point the prosecution's trying to make with this. And you want to leave the jury on a high note, for lack of a better term, whenever you're trying a case, either side.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You know, for our viewers, we get, they're in a 5-minute break now in the courtroom, so it gives us an opportunity to go back to some really compelling testimony and pieces of evidence. So thank you all for joining us here. And let's start right now, as they're in a 5-minute break in the courtroom. Let's begin with what I will consider the most important piece of evidence in this entire case, the roadside assistance call from Corey Jones. Take a look.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Get your fucking hands up. Get your fucking hands up. Go!
Oh my gosh. There's gunshots.
That fucking gun right now!
911.
Hey, this is Gardens Alpha 1. I just got one down. I just shot one person. I'm at that off-ramp right behind Doubletree. Blackmail.
You're behind the Doubletree?
I'm on the off-ramp, 95 southbound off-ramp, off the Doubletree. I am not covered in anything right now. And,
all right.
Give me some units. I got one down. I got one man down. Got 5 ready. Stand by.
Roger, you all right?
Yeah, man, I'm good. Drop the gun!
On the off-ramp, right?
On the off-ramp. Give me some units. I've lost contact with him. I don't know where he is.
All right, you got it, buddy. Where's your radio? Where's your radio, Raj?
My radio's in the van right now. I don't have it with me. That's why I'm on the phone.
All right, stay on the phone, buddy. What's the guy look like?
Black male wearing all black dress, had a silver handgun in his right hand. I came out, I saw him come out with a handgun, I gave him commands, I identified myself, and he turned, pointed the gun at me, started running, I shot him. I've lost contact, 65 to 28 on the SUV.
Go ahead.
It's going to be a Florida 28 of 286 Papa Romeo Hotel, 286 PRH.
Don't know yet. Spike, put that out now. All right, it's a 08 Hyundai 286 Papa Romeo Hotel.
Yes, 286.
All right, it's coming back. It's coming back on a 4-door Hyundai gray.
Yeah, SUV.
Yeah, it's out of Lake Worth. It's not stolen or anything.
All right, man.
All right, stay on the phone. Where's the van at? Where's your van at? In the Doubletree lot?
No, right on the off-ramp. You'll see my van right there. I'm walking back to my van. I'm back to my van in the car. All right. Hit at least 3 to 4 times.
All units, signal 33.
All right, you got your radio now?
Doubletree Hotel.
No, hold on, not yet.
All right. I got units. I got units coming.
Male and dreads on the off ramp behind
All right,
Devil
man,
Street.
thank you.
Males outside.
All right, stay on the phone, all right, buddy?
Temple. Send them where the male
All
went.
right.
Gardens off one. I'm by the radio now.
26. Rise
All right,
male
hang
hit
up the
3 to
phone,
4
bud.
times. 51.
All right,
FD 51 stage. 350. We're in the parking lot.
I'm not in the parking lot. I'm right on the off ramp. He ran across into the grass towards 95. Guys, right here. He ran in that direction. I lost visual of him. 348. I'm on 95. Just advised that they went on.
Now, Jonna, the thing that strikes me the most about this is just how chilling it is how quickly it goes by. From the confrontation, the communication about saying who he is, to the gunfire, to him being shot dead. I mean, that's so chilling. What do you take from it?
There's a lot of things you can take from this audio. And again, as you correctly point out, we don't see what's going on. But as we hear what's going on, you almost run a picture in your mind, right, of what's happening. A couple of things strike me. And mostly against the defendant here for the prosecution. The defendant admits the victim was running away. So that says to me, not being aggressive, he's running away. He's afraid. He's afraid of this person. But in favor of the defendant, he clearly doesn't know, or at least he says he doesn't think that he killed this person. He said, I lost sight of him. That tells me he doesn't know whether he's dead or alive, right? Otherwise, he's going to say, I just shot some. Well, he did say man down. He did say man down, but he couldn't see him. So maybe I stand corrected there. I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I thought it was going to help him if he didn't know whether that person was still a threat, that it would be helpful to him. But he did say man down, so I correct myself there.
His mandate was being in plain clothes, trying to observe, I think, car thefts.
Yeah.
And so he probably thought that this Corey Jones was stealing the car. I mean, he was off the side of the road, which, by the way, I think is a little strange, because if you're stealing a car, maybe if this happened in a parking lot, an abandoned parking lot, would have made more sense than off the side of an interstate ramp. But the thing is the communication, hey, I'm an officer, do you need help? That's not picked up by that audio in a clear way.
That's not.
But is that reasonable doubt?
What it is ironic, Jesse. This poor, innocent, lawful gun owner is stranded on the side of the road, and he was there for a while. It wasn't like this happened 5 minutes earlier. He was there for a bit of time. He called a brother. He called somebody in the band. It's a shame that 911 didn't know there was somebody stranded on the side of the road before this officer came up thinking that he was happening upon a car thief. I just, if we could only go back in time, that's one thing. So,
do you think that Raja can make the argument that I properly identified myself as an officer, and that I didn't know that Jones didn't know that? So, you know, when he says, huh, Jones says, huh, maybe Raja would come back and say, I didn't hear him say that.
So,
I thought I properly identified myself.
Picture that on cross-examination. Picture the prosecution questioning the defendant here. Oh, really? When did you say it? How did you say it? Did you flash a badge? Where was your badge? What were you wearing? I mean, I don't think he's going to fare very well in cross-examination when it comes to that. But then again, the jury's going to be left deciding, is he telling the truth? Did he actually identify himself? Because if he did, that's a key component here.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to testify, though.
He has to.
We see it so many times in these self-defense cases. I'll be the first to tell you, doesn't always work well for the defendant. No. I remember one case we covered here in particular, the Ray Tensing case. This was a long time ago, where he testified, similar, shooting, and it was a mistrial. Not saying the same thing will happen here, but it's very interesting to see when the defendant takes the stands in these police shootings. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll either be live in Raja, or we'll recap some of the most important testimony and pieces of evidence. We'll be right back.